Hello everyone and welcome back to Turkish series Stars, the corner where we breathe the pulse of the industry, where every whispered rumor and every dazzling premiere finds a place to be unpacked with heart, curiosity, and just the right pinch of drama. I hope you're comfortable, because today's topic has turned the spotlight so bright that even seasoned insiders are squinting. You saw the title, you felt the tremor, and you're right, the ground really did shake. We are stepping into the eye of a storm that formed on January 30th, 2026, and it has not calmed down since. The news about Ozan Baba and Sinem broke like a sudden clap of thunder, the kind that rattles windows and sends everyone racing to their phones. What we're dealing with is the kind of announcement that resets timelines, redefines expectations, and makes fans ask whether what they thought they knew was ever truly the whole story. From the first moments that the headlines rolled out, our messages here at Turkish series Stars lit up like a marquee on opening night. There was disbelief, then worry, and then a rush to piece together every bit of context, every little clue that might have been hiding in plain sight. This is not one of those fleeting social media blips you scroll past and forget by lunchtime. This is a turning point, a line drawn between before and after for two names that have come to mean so much to so many. As always, our mission is to sift through the noise with compassion and clarity, to gather what's known, examine what's being said, and carefully navigate what remains uncertain. You want to understand how we got here, what the ripples mean, and what could come next for Ozan and Sinem. We're going to talk about all of it, because that's what we do, together, patiently, and with respect for the people at the center of the story. If you're part of this community, you already know. We don't chase shadows, but we won't shy away from the truth when it stands up and insists on being seen. And this truth is not a whisper, it's a statement. The reveal on January 30th was not couched in ambiguous wording or hidden between lines. It was stark, decisive, and frankly, heartbreaking for those who had come to believe in the enduring bond between Ozan and Sinem. For ages it seemed their paths were intertwined in a way that felt almost scripted by fate. Shared public moments that felt intimate despite the cameras, professional triumphs cheered on by both, and the quiet gestures that fans picked up on with the intensity of a magnifying glass. They were, to many, a testament to what connection could look like under the brightest lights. Yet even the most radiant stories can reveal shadows you can't see from the audience. For months, and I mean months, there were small tremors. They were subtle, like a song played just a little softer than usual. Back in the closing weeks of 2025, quiet conversations began to circulate among people who work late nights, who spend long hours in editing rooms, on sets, or in the back corners of award show afterparties. Online communities noticed gaps where there were usually joint posts, and kept searching for meaning in interviews that suddenly felt more guarded, more careful. And still, most shrugged and said it was nothing. The calendar was heavy, schedules clash, life gets complicated. Surely it would all even out with time. But then came the end of January and the whisper became a headline. The message was delivered in the precise manner that tends to accompany matters of the heart when public and private worlds meet. Official words were measured and dignified. The framing spoke of differences that could not be bridged, of life paths diverging not in anger but in recognition of what each needed to pursue. It was the kind of announcement that treats the public with honesty yet protects the intimate space that every human being deserves when goodbyes arrive. If you were waiting for blame, you didn't find it. If you wanted a villain, you were left without one. What we received instead was the sober acknowledgement that sometimes love and admiration exist alongside an undeniable truth, that what once fit beautifully can stop fitting over time. And of course, once the door opened, the usual waves began to crash. Theories took root at lightning speed. Some pointed to the relentless demands of their careers, demands that anyone in the industry will tell you can be awe-inspiring and brutal in equal measure. Ozan's rhythm has long involved long shoots, creative immersion, and the kind of preparation that eats entire weeks alive. Sinem's calendar is no less fierce, with roles that stretch her artistry and long stretches where personal life must wait outside the set door. Add to this the changes in the digital landscape, the expectation to be present everywhere at once, to be gracious and focused and tireless, and it becomes clear how the clock can turn into an enemy. When distance is no longer measured in kilometers but in missed calls and late nights, even the strongest relationships are asked to do impossible math. There were other whispers, too, the kind that murmur about creative differences, about dreams that stop moving in perfect parallel. It happens. As people evolve, their visions do, too. What felt aligned in one season may point in opposite directions in the next. You start a journey side by side, and gradually the roads curve. Compromise stitches up some gaps, but others widen with each decision. Choosing a challenging role means time and focus. Choosing a new path means persevering even when the people who love you feel left behind by your momentum. These are not transgressions, they're human realities, and they've broken no laws. They simply require honesty, courage, and, sometimes, letting go. Of course, in the louder corners of the internet, a handful of voices tried to plant seeds of scandal. The temptation to attach a name, a moment, a photo taken out of context, is often irresistible to those who feed on drama for its own sake. But here, we stand by a standard. There has been no credible evidence of third-party involvement, no verified trail pointing to anything beyond the pressures of life and work. To leap at shadows would be easy. To decline that leap is the responsible choice, and it's the one we are making. Ozan and Sinem have earned better than gossip for gossip's sake. They have earned a fair reading of the facts, and that is what we pledge to give. If you're online, you've seen what came next. The trending tags. The heartfelt edits. The long threads where fans who felt like family tried to encourage each other through the shock. One group responded with heartbreak, sharing memories of interviews and premieres with a tenderness that felt personal. Another group responded with quiet acceptance, recognizing that adults make hard decisions, and sometimes love looks like stepping away. And yes, there was also that restless current of speculation, the endless chain of what-ifs and maybes, as if a perfect explanation could undo the ache of an ending. Through it all, one truth remained: behind those headlines are two people who feel, who bleed, who have private lives that do not belong to the spotlight, no matter how many times it has loved them. This is where we pause and remind ourselves of the line that must not be crossed. Admiration does not grant the right to intrude. Fascination does not justify cruelty. Curiosity must coexist with compassion. Ending a chapter is hard enough without the world tallying your tears. The grace in the statements we saw should guide our own behavior. This moment calls for gentleness, for remembering that the story is not over, it is simply changing shape. What comes next for Ozan and Sinem will be theirs to write, whether we watch closely or give them space. And yet, in the same breath, we can talk about possibilities. Because endings, as painful as they are, create room. For Sinem, there might be projects she has quietly kept on the back burner, scripts that ask something new of her, collaborations that spark a different kind of fire. There is a kind of focus that appears in the wake of a personal turning point, a clarity about what matters and what can wait. She has always carried a balance of strength and vulnerability on screen. Imagine what that looks like when channeled into roles that mirror reinvention. Imagine the power of a performance shaped by resilience. For Ozan, this could be a moment to reset rhythms that had become relentless. To choose characters not only for artistic challenge but for timing and meaning. To be exactly where he wants to be, without apology, without the constant tug of a schedule designed around compromise. When artists are granted the time to breathe, their work often deepens. It becomes richer, more specific, braver. If you've followed Ozan, you know he's always had that grit. Now he may have the space to wield it with an even steadier hand. What remains undeniable is how deeply this news has touched the ecosystem around them. If you work in PR, you felt it in the questions that flooded your inbox. If you run a fan page, you felt it in the comments you moderated late into the night. If you simply love stories, you felt it in that little break in your chest when reality turns left just as you were getting comfortable. But as any great story teaches us, heartbreak is not the end of meaning. It is part of it. The warmth of their past moments does not fade because a new chapter begins. It becomes a memory worth holding with gratitude rather than disappointment. Now, for those asking what exactly happened on January 30th, let's be clear about what we know and what we do not. The information shared publicly was succinct. The tone was conscientious, careful not to ignite further frenzy. The language acknowledged a separation, acknowledged respect, and refrained from assigning fault. It suggested diverging priorities, the pull of different life plans, and the honest acceptance that compatibility is not guaranteed, even when admiration is. In the days since, reputable sources have echoed that stance. There has been no official push to expand on these reasons, and that restraint is a choice we respect. At Turkish series Stars, we've sifted through the reported timelines, comparing public appearances and documented commitments. The pattern that emerges is not one of scandal, it is one of strain. Long shoots. Location changes that stretch months. Overlapping obligations that make the calendar fold in on itself. Creative growth that demands solitude, reflection, and the courage to say no. If you've ever tried to nurture a relationship while chasing excellence, you know how delicate the balance really is. The spotlight can burn, but so can love when it's forced to live on leftovers of time. The community's reactions remain a kaleidoscope. I've read posts from fans who discovered the couple during a particularly tough year and found hope in their synergy. I've seen messages from those who say, with admirable maturity, that love doesn't fail just because it ends. I've also seen critics of the circus around celebrity culture, urging everyone to remember that real people are involved. In a sense, all of these reactions are valid, because they come from places of care, confusion, and the desire to understand. But the healthiest path forward is to honor the boundaries set by those at the center of the story, and to let time do what it does best, reveal, soften, and guide. As we look ahead, there is room for optimism alongside the sadness. There are premieres on the horizon, scripts in development, opportunities for reinvention that neither of them may have considered 6 months ago. For Sinem, perhaps a role that leans into understated intensity, the kind where silence says more than words. For Ozan, perhaps a project that lets him reframe audiences' expectations, challenging himself in new genres or mediums. They do not owe us these next acts, but if they choose to share them, we will be here. Curious, supportive, ready to be surprised. And to those who worry that this is the end of a dream, I say this: sometimes what we admire most about public figures is not invincibility, but their ability to move through life's fractures with grace. The story here is not about defeat. It is about honesty. It is about acknowledging that standing apart can be an act of care just as surely as standing together once was. If love is a language, then so is letting go when the sentence no longer reads the way it used to. Before we close, I want to speak directly to the heart of this community. Your support is why Turkish series Stars exists and thrives. You turn notifications into conversations, and conversations into a space where empathy is the rule. If you're new here, make yourself at home. If you've been with us from the beginning, you already know how we move. With passion, but never at the expense of dignity. We will keep bringing you thoughtful updates as the story evolves, and we will keep amplifying the artistry that first brought Ozan and Sinem into our lives. Tell me what you think. Tell me how you received the news that hit on January 30th, 2026. Share the scenes that still make you smile when you think of them, the interviews that felt like little windows into their souls. If you have your own theories, grounded, respectful, mindful of what isn't ours to know, share them, too. I read as many comments as I can, and your perspectives help shape the conversations we have next. If this video gave you clarity or simply kept you company in a moment of uncertainty, tap that like. Send it to the friend who always messages you first when something big drops. And if you haven't joined us yet, subscribe and ring that bell so you'll never miss a chapter, a premiere, or a carefully gathered truth. We'll continue to follow the aftermath, not to invade, but to understand. We will hold space for both sorrow and hope, because both belong here. For now, this is where we leave it, with respect for Ozan Baba and Sinem Unsal, with appreciation for what they have shared with the world, and with faith that the roads they choose next will be lit by the same dedication that made everyone care in the first place. Thank you for being here, for listening with your heart, and for trusting Turkish series stars to carry this conversation forward. I'll see you very soon. Until then, take care of yourselves, and let's remember that sometimes the most loving thing we can do is give the people we admire the space to step into their next scene on their own terms.